welcome to Check It Out, Comrade. Hi, Royce. An indie game podcast where every 2 weeks we bring you 2 indie games and tell you what we like about them. I'm Nick Glauber.
And I'm Gary Butterfield.
And this week we're doing just one game. It is Shadowrun Hong Kong.
Yeah, it's a big game. Continuing our mission to cover every Shadowrun game on Duckfeed.
Yep. Duckfeed is getting all of them on there. Has anyone done the FPS yet? FPS?
We did it for Abject Suffering.
Yeah, okay. Wait.
The one game we haven't done is the Sega CD game that's not, like, you had to find a fan translation patch.
Ah, sweet. Okay. We're almost there then.
Very close.
So, Shadowrun Hong Kong, it is the third in Harebrained Schemes' Shadowrun Return series that they have kickstarted every bit of so far. Following Dragonfall was the most recent one, and before that was just Shadowrun Returns. And it came out on the 20th of August of this year, 2015, and is out on Windows, OS X, and Linux.
It's actually like the idea is that this is a separate game.
Yeah.
I think like it had a separate Kickstarter and the like, whereas Dragonfall was like an expansion.
That's true, but they ended up kind of separating Dragonfall out into its own game anyway, and then doing like a director's cut and stuff of that. So to me, and Dragonfall was like more content than
it's so substantial. It's just their weirdo nomenclature.
Yeah. So I like to consider it the third of a series so far.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
But this one had its own, they raised money on it, and like it was a wildly successful Kickstarter. Like these guys are gaining some trust in the community. And this is essentially, it's a very similar, almost identical engine and gameplay. The other thing, it is just a very different setting and a different story from the games that we've done. And for my money, this is solidly like my second favorite.
Agreed. Yeah.
I don't like it as much as Dragonfall. I think Dragonfall was, very close to my favorite game the year it came out. Like I think it's really, really good. And I think this is really good too, but just not quite as good. And we'll talk about some of the reasons why. But first, we should say what's good about this, Nick. What's cool about Shadowrun Hong Kong?
So Shadowrun Hong Kong takes place in a really cool setting.
New Jersey.
In New Jersey, no. Yeah. But obviously, it takes place in Hong Kong. But even neater than that is that it takes place on the outskirts of Kowloon Walled City, which is a cool actual place that actually existed. And in this kind of alt history, Kowloon Walled City, which was this huge, massive slum that was just a big city block tower that kind of got ramshackle, turned into its essentially why it's called Walled City, basically became its own little low-income city of its own. And in the Shadowrun universe, Kowloon gets rebuilt after it's demolished in I believe the late 80s as another low-income housing project, except this time things get a little magic and wonky.
It's worth noting that for people who are listening who don't know the Kowloon Walled City, that you owe it to. It's like one of top 10 Wikipedia entries of all time.
Yeah.
It is, it's really interesting. Like I've wanted something set in that place or like a horror movie or something ever since I learned about it.
Me too. Yeah.
'Cause when we say it's like a city block, it really kind of undersells it. Like it's this crazy forgotten, city block that was like built over an old, war fortress. And it just grew upwards. Like they only had a certain amount of space, and it became this weird lawless area where people were like, it just became very like Blade Runner or, like people, it had its own like culture. And then you had to traverse like steam tunnels and shit to get around.
Yeah.
There were parts of the city the sun didn't reach because of canopies of clotheslines. Like it's this very surreal place.
Yeah, it's basically one of the coolest like real life settings
like
for
wonders.
anything to ever take place in. And it is played out, this game does take place in the surrounding areas, and I kind of wish it took place more in the Walled City itself because that's such a fucking cool setting.
It's super cool. You do go to the Walled City.
Yeah.
And you also, the kind of main theming and plot of the game involve the Walled City.
Correct.
Quite a bit in a way that like, and we'll talk about this when we get into kind of spoilers and stuff. Is like, I feel like almost like I don't want to get, the Duckfeed network taken over by social justice warriors. It's borderline a little offensive though, because the game kind of posits an explanation for Kowloon that is underselling a little like some of the real human causes of poverty and the like. It's like I'm not necessarily offended by it, and in the timeline that happens after it was already built, like it was already a shitty place before the Shadowrun thing happened to it. But just kind of like taking one of the most impoverished areas in the history of the world and saying like, oh, like magic did it,
right?
Is that's kind of troubling a little bit. The way all of it articulates is really cool. But I could see people, like there are people alive who had family members who died there because the government, because of inadequate support. Like I could see them being bummed out, by this game's kind of take on what it is. If you haven't listened to our Dragonfall or our Shadowrun Returns episodes, the new Shadowrun games, the Harebrained Scheme games, are old style computer role playing games that have that kind of quest, like an open ended quest structure. But the combat takes place it is a light tactical combat. So think like a lighter version of Final Fantasy Tactics or XCOM.
Yeah.
Cover based, turn based action point economy. And kind of the appeal of Shadowrun as a setting and also the combat in this game and the gameplay is the wide variety of character types you can have. Shadowrun kind of plays all sides of things. Like it is, magic and technology exist is kind of in this uneasy kind of truce in Shadowrun. So you have different kinds of magicians, different kinds of like technomancers, then you also have different kinds of fighters, either with guns or melee weapons.
And on that same vein, there's also no set classes.
Yes,
you kind of just get abilities by putting your points into certain areas and adapting those skills. The only restriction is there's kind of a limit between how much you can modify your body and how much magic ability you have, as taking on body mods, which can improve any sort of like robotic parts you can add to yourself, which you can do a lot of. They reduce your essence, and essence is kind of a measure of your magical ability. So people who are really strong in magic don't take on any or very little body mods, as that would reduce their essence and make them less powerful.
Yeah, like you do have to specialize a bit, but it is a thing where like everybody can fight. So you're always like a fighter mage. Like you're never just like a straight up mage.
Right.
And you can do kind of a multi-class. And there are even more character types than that. Like there are also deckers, which are like cyberspace hackers, and then physical adepts, which are like magic samurais.
Right.
So there's just so many, like there's a lot of really cool, interesting things. There's a lot of racial dynamics because and by which I mean like fantasy races. So
right.
like, elves and trolls and the like, and those play different, and you'll get different reactions and stuff. And it's a really rich universe. And this game does a pretty good job of presenting it in a setting that I haven't spent any time with. Like I played a lot of the tabletop game when I was growing up, and I've read a lot of the source books, and they came out with those splat books for different areas.
Right.
But this is what I don't know very much about Hong Kong as it pertains after the the event that turned Shadowrun. Created the world.
Right.
And apparently it is just like it sounds like a police state, more or less, which is kind of similar to Dragonfall, except that with a bigger emphasis on crime. So
yeah, the triads play a much bigger role in the ruling of the underlings.
Yeah, and it plays into this game too. So like, whereas the last one you were kind of an established runner, this is an origin story of how you get sucked into the world of Shadowrunning and kind of a form of indentured servitude to this organized crime boss.
Right.
Which all of that like is pretty interesting and works as kind of a setup. It does that thing that I really like that these games do, where you choose your own background. So like inconsequential choices, it'll always let you make, but it helps with role playing.
Yes.
So, just the basics is you're coming back to settle a family affair, and you're meeting your brother, and you get to kind of choose your like adopted brother. Therefore, you can have whatever race you want. But you get to choose what your backstory is and what your relationship is.
Yeah. You definitely, and it seems to track that really well throughout the whole game too. Certain kind of dialogue choices you make at the beginning is in terms of like, how do you treat him? You have been gone for a while. You haven't seen your guys' foster father or each other in a long time. And how you as a role player decide to handle that interaction is kept as kind of a pace throughout the rest of the game. It's really well done, actually.
It's super well done. It's kind of though the bummer part of it, if there is one, is that I feel like Dragonfall kept track of more of those. like the team that you start out with in Dragonfall, like all the characters are really, really great, and you have a relationship with all of them. They're all pretty complicated.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you have I can't remember the names of anyone, but you have the big troll lady who like doesn't trust you and blames you for, you know, your mutual friend's death. And then you have the shaman guy who is like gentler and more practical, but still like dealing with his pain. And you have the totally shut down you know, the lady who you have to get her out to come out of her shell because she's lost so much essence that she's, you know, actually losing track of her humanity.
Right.
And the character's really interesting. In this game, I feel like there's like one interesting relationship instead of a bunch.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it does kind of dive much shallower into the relationship between you and the other characters. I feel like this one has significantly more background and dialogue for like every character in it, though.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this more so than the previous games was like a tome of text.
Yeah, there's a lot to read.
Yeah.
And the writing, as much as it's not quite to the level of Dragonfall, I don't think, which I think was really, really, really well written.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this game is slightly less well written.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. There is a lot of it though. Like I guess there's a little more quantity over quality, but it's still decent. Like it's in no way bad. I don't think there was any point where I was like, oh geez, that's some really bad writing.
Yeah, there's no bad writing.
But yeah, that's just Dragonfall is real quality kind of in all dimensions, I think.
Yeah. So there are a bunch of different kind of updates to the system. Mostly ease of use things. So like decking has felt better in each entry since the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And here it's probably at the most sophisticated where there are actually kind of like stealth elements to it.
Which kind of threw me at the start. It took me a while to kind of understand how that was supposed to play out, as I thought I was going to be, it's real time when you're not in combat, which means you're doing these stealth portions in real time, but it's also on this like grid-based pathfinding system where you just click somewhere and the character goes there via, you know, some pathfinding algorithm, which makes it really hard to like tightly navigate through, you know, strictly timed little revolving bots that you're trying to avoid their line of sight. So at first I was kind of like, what the fuck, and kept restarting. And then once I got a better understanding of how much trace it gives you, it's obvious that you're kind of meant to tactically pick out which ones are going to be a problem and take those out and avoid the rest. And that makes it a much cleaner portion of the game, I think. Yeah,
and it still slows things down because the rest of your group isn't, you know, things move faster in the Matrix.
Right.
But it's a little bit better. And that's always been something that Shadowrun and all of its forums has really struggled with.
Right.
It's a nightmare in tabletop and you know, they're slowly stumbling towards getting it right. But this is a step in that direction. Of making it a little bit more engaging. The cyberware is really tweaked. You know, there are a lot of little balance things like that that they made adjustments to, but it's basically the same engine and stuff. So if you know what you like, you know, if you know you like the previous entries, you'll like this one as well.
Right.
You know, and I played it actually when it first came out, and we're recording it way after because of many reasons, and so, I mean, and it was something where I was like, I know I should wait to play this, but I just wanted to play it. So I got it out of the way. Cause I, you know, these games are my jam. Like this is my thing.
Exactly.
You know,
I think that the only other major change I can think of is I believe I may be misremembering Dragonfall, or this may have been something that they introduced in the director's cut, but the NPC leveling or your team member leveling is handled differently.
It's much more interesting. Yeah, you get the unique kind of perks.
Yeah, so each time you reach certain number of missions complete, I think is what it is, you get to level your entire team of NPCs. And what you get to do is choose between one of two options per level that kind of take them down different specialty routes. And they're all really good. Like it's like a specific skill. I know there's one guy that you get later who essentially his two choices are, do you want him to be really strong with melee, or do you want him to have these better kind of undead powers? So those like end up being really cool choices as to how you want to specialize that character, and it's all completely your choice, but with really simple, one of two choices.
Yeah, and they play into character as well. So like with that character, it's what side of his personality you want him to embrace.
Exactly.
And same thing with your brother, who who is having a harder time. Like, it's kind of interesting because he's a bigger, more imposing guy, but he's having a harder time with this whole thing than you are.
Right.
So there is this kind of like little brother, big sister, or big brother relationship.
Yeah.
With him, that's just really interesting. Yeah, that's really cool. I really like that. And the NPCs in general are better. In Dragonfall, you got that Decker who was just kind of a goof off and it's fine. But
yeah,
they add 2 optional NPCs to this that are much better developed and are both really cool, I think.
Yeah, I like both of the optional NPCs.
Yeah, I like them from both perspectives, like from a play and from a narrative perspective.
Yeah, especially the one which I'm sure we'll talk about later. But the choice in getting one of them is one of the craziest choices in the game, I think.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's I really like that.
Yeah.
One other reason, or place where this game excels, and before we get into like kind of spoiler section, but just as a recommendation, is that the quest design is really good. The main quest itself, is good, but I think I like Dragonfall better. The side quests in this are really great. And that's something that the Shadowrun video games have done a really great job at, because there are so many, there are years and years of backstory and lore for this world. So they can just kind of choose one aspect and explore it. And it's, articulates in a way you've never seen it before. Like you could read about ghouls or vampires or these different viruses or these different, kind of technologies in this world. And it would be kind of boring, but playing it and seeing it reveal itself slowly through gameplay and story is much cooler. And the actual quest and everything that you do are really, really cool.
Yeah, they are really good.
Yeah.
There's nothing that's like, dead simple fetch quests, because part of the having so many character options is that gives them the ability to put in a lot of venues for success.
Mm-hmm.
And that ends up making for, almost a unique experience every time you go through with a different team. Trying to get to essentially the same ends by completely different means is every single mission in this game is built out in a way that can be completed multiple ways, and it's great.
Yeah, it really respects that kind of player choice. Like, you can't talk your way out of everything, but you can talk your way out of some things. You can sneak your way out of some things. Like, it is a combat focused game that it rewards kind of dipping into other things as well.
Yeah.
It's really good. It doesn't look any better than the previous games. Looks more or less the same.
Mm-hmm.
I think the soundtrack is a little bit better.
Soundtrack's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the soundtrack like sets the mood really well and does a lot to kind of immerse you into the game, since you're going to be doing a lot of reading and
they
incorporate
a lot of East Asian traditional music and sounds and stuff that works really well. So
yeah, for sure. I don't know if I have other things to say that are not spoiler zone.
I mean, I don't think there's any reason for us to be giving you guys too much of a, intro to the plot when you'll basically know if you want to play this game based entirely on the setting and the Shadowrun name. So if either of those appeal to you, you should check it out. It's really good. It is second still, as we're saying, to Dragonfall, I think, in both of our opinions, but it's definitely really solid game. And fuck, I got like 30 hours of gameplay out of it. It's not like, it is substantial.
Yeah. I think I got less than that, but it was still, a lot to it. And I didn't do all of the reading and everything.
Yeah. Oh man, I didn't either.
Yeah.
I still skimmed through some stuff and still took that long. So
yeah. So, and you already know the very basic setup of the plot. You get to come back to deal with a family issue, and you eventually become a Shadowrunner, kind of indentured to a crime lord.
Yep.
So just on to admin stuff.
Yeah.
Nick, tell them how they can help out the show.
Sure. So you guys, the best way to help us out is to come to our Patreon at patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv, right?
Yeah.
And there, if you pitch in, a little bit of money here or there, one main thing we have going on right now is there's a Slack channel if you put in $2 or above, where you can join up, talk about our various shows with us. We're in there all the time. It's a direct interaction type deal that I'm a real big fan of.
Yeah, it's super fun.
The various other rewards, like getting episodes early and stuff. So always the best venue to help us out is going to be our Patreon. Yeah.
And I'd like to apologize for the delay. This is primarily due to me. I've talked about it on Slack, and you guys, patrons and everything, found out about it, but I'm having some living situation issues that are likely to make the next episode. Like, I don't know when I'm going to be able to play the games for our next episode. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be a little while before a new one of these comes out, I think. Yeah, I'm separated from my computer.
Yes. So the next episodes are going to be a little bit spotty, hit or miss as to when they're coming out, but you guys have been real nice about that so far. So
Yeah, I pray to God that everything is settled by the time Afterbirth comes out.
Yeah, I sure hope so. If we come back from a hiatus with Afterbirth, I will be. That's all I need. I will feel no remorse, and everything will be honky dory. So
yep. So again, if that ruffles any feathers, I apologize. Not my intention. I'm just going through some real life stuff. Yeah, and we should get on to some spoiler stuff.
Sure. So if you haven't played the game, you probably don't want to listen to the rest unless you know you're never going to play it. But there'll be a little ditty right here, and we'll be back with storyline stuff for Shadowrun Hong Kong.
Yeah.
All right. So this game's storyline, I feel like the main plot really just wasn't. They kind of tried to tail it along like throughout the entire game, but there wasn't much of a grab. Everyone's getting these haunting dreams, and you don't know where your foster father is, and that's just all you have that string you along throughout the entire game where you're doing these Shadowrun missions, and they're all good. All the side missions are really good, but the storyline itself, until the very end, I thought the ending was great. Like I like how it all wrapped up, but I don't like how the main storyline was spread out throughout the rest of the game.
It is, it's really hinted in the corners and the like the side quests are the strongest part, and the idea of the main plot is really good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so it's this whole, it deals with this mythology, of these things called these Yama Kings, and they're essentially demons.
Mm-hmm.
But of course they are, they're real, and we can access them now that we're in Shadowrun land. And the Cliff Notes version is that, your uncle or father or foster father created a machine which channeled key energy, like good fortune.
Right.
Channeled it out of a place and into another place. And people, saw that and took advantage of it and, got their grasps in it. And you're dealing with the machinations around that. But at the center of it is this demon. This demon queen who everyone's been dreaming about, and is kind of affecting the Kowloon walled city and sucking happiness and good fortune out of it.
Yeah. So he was basically attempting to make Kowloon into, by channeling, good key and magic and all this stuff. He was trying to actually make this low income housing project into something that would bring its denizens prosperity, but it all backed up, and it was just like this pool of negative energy, which allowed these terrible demons to come through, or specifically this one, and take over and start giving everyone haunting nightmares and gain more and more power into coming into our realm.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And that part I can get on board with. Like, the design of the demon is cool. It's dealing with something that, the second Shadowrun is about dragons. The first one is about insects, insect spirits. It's dealing with these cool heavy hitter aspects of Shadowrun mythology.
Yeah, totally.
And I can get into that. And the actual family part of the story is good. Like this idea, the relationship with your brother and how he's reacting to this versus yourself. The actual antagonist, there's like an assassin who's called the Plastic Faced Man.
That's a good character.
Yeah, I like him a lot. He's really
was
cool.
Well done.
And he's like this super assassin. He's really badass. That stuff's really good. It doesn't tie in. Like, you start out and it's a bit of the main story, and then there's just this huge gulf of side quests.
Yeah.
Which are all good, but yeah, I agree with you that there's not like a cohesive thread.
I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, it's been a while since I played Dragonfall, but I felt like there was kind of these gates between sections of getting more opportunities to take on optional runs, where those gates were storyline aspects, and completing a storyline aspect opened up more side quests, which opened up another, completing some of those got you another gate of main quest to open up more side quests. And it kind of just, kept you evenly paced throughout the whole thing. And there isn't that at all.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, this is the story stuff comes at the beginning and end, more or less.
Yeah.
And the point of no return doesn't happen right away, but you're not going to gain new side quests after you start doing the quests that lead to the end game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have, speaking of side quests, do you have a favorite we can chat about real quick?
So I really liked, I can't find the name of it, but I really liked the side quest that you did for Goblet. Is that her name? Where she goes to Gobbet, I guess, not Goblet. I put an L in there in my mind, apparently. But she's been talking up throughout the entire game. You can keep this running dialogue with her, where she's helping you kind of learn the basics of being a Shadowrunner. And through that, she's talking about these past experiences, and they kind of bring up memories that she had pushed back of her old team, who live out on this like floating shamble of boats that she grew up on, and she left all them, and now she's getting really worried about them, and then one day she disappears. And the mission where you and Isabel go to find her and locate her, I think it's a cool buildup of storyline to a fairly neat ending if you do it the fighty way, and it's a cool end boss that I think just has a nice streak to get to. There's nothing specific about the mission; it's basically just go in there and fight stuff. But I liked the storyline wrap into it.
Yeah, I like that a lot too. That one's really good. The one that stands out to me is the one with the vampire queen.
Yeah, I figured you were gonna say that one since you mentioned the vampires earlier.
Yeah, that's really cool because it's you're getting caught up in this entertainment feud between two entertainers, and one's just trying to get this starlet from you, or one get this starlet from the other one.
Right.
But there are all these little things that don't add up. That end up, you follow the trail of breadcrumbs, and the person who is currently in power, who has the highest ratings, got into a car accident and healed really fast and everything. And you find out that he's like essentially dating a vampire.
Yeah.
But then when you find her, like she's just a person, like she does this, she's doing this because she can't go back to her home and her kind are hunted. And in Shadowrun, like vampirism is a virus. Like it's not, and I guess that's true in like Oblivion and all that stuff, but it's not, it doesn't turn you evil.
Right.
It just makes you have to sustain yourself on blood.
Correct.
So she's not a bad person. And you get this like, well, I spare this person or do I not? And your mission is to kill her,
right.
if you find out about it. So you have to choose this kind of moral choice, and you get this benefit. If you don't kill her, she'll come back and help you.
Oh, where does she come back and help you?
I want to say in the final, like one of the final fights.
I don't remember her showing up because I did spare her, but I might have
There's a couple different options. Like there's like spare her. There's make her leave, or I think it's if you let her just continue with her existence.
Yeah.
With the guy, she owes you a favor. You can also say like, don't let the sun set on you here, or you can, which is she's a vampire, like she doesn't let the sun set on her anywhere. Or you just kill her. And I think if you let her just continue, you sacrifice your money for that run, but she shows up in the final boss fight.
Yeah, I really like how that came about too, because like she puts on this big show, like on this big, meet me on the roof and we're gonna have this big battle, you can't fight me here and all this stuff, and then you like get her health down and she's like, okay, stop, like I have no idea what I'm doing. I thought you weren't gonna fight me. I thought I was threatening enough. Like she's just scared and doesn't understand this new life that she's been forced into. It's really good. I do like that one a lot.
Yeah, it's sympathy for a character you wouldn't ordinarily think you have sympathy for.
Yeah.
The two side characters they introduce are really great too. We mentioned the one who has the kind of zombie powers. This is Gaichu, who is a samurai character, but he has a different strain of that virus that turns him into a ghoul.
Yep.
And his recruitment mission is great, where you're solving this series of like murders, the serial killer thing, and then things don't add up, and they're being made to look more grisly than they are.
Yeah,
because you're being used. He was hired as an assassin, and you're being used to kill him. Right. For it from the people who hired him, and it's just really cool. And you get that choice, and it's like he's not a bad guy. He just has to eat human flesh. But you are also hired to do a job. So there's like multiple ways that the morality can shake out.
So one of my favorite ways to play basically any RPG is to always start off with the greatest of intentions, and then as my power grows, so does my capacity for killing people. I think that's the best character, and it's my favorite way to play. That's how I played the first Fallout, and I think every game since is just followed in suit the first time I played through it. And this was kind of a forced turning point for that. Because I came across that mission, and your two options are kill a guy who didn't get paid, and really it's hard to say whether or not he was justified in killing a bunch of people who refused to pay him when he's a killer for hire. Like it's like if you don't kill someone who's a killer for hire, or you don't pay someone who's a killer for hire, what do you expect? And then they've been lying to their citizens and saying they don't know anything about who's killing these people and all that. Not when they knew the entire time, they just didn't want to pay the guy.
Yeah.
Or if you side with him, they're not going to stand for that, and then you're going to have to kill all the rest of them. So it's a real forced option of, do I kill people or do I kill people? And there's no good way to really do it. So I went with the option that put a badass on my team.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's great.
He's great.
He has these cool, unique abilities. The other guy is kind of this amoral Russian technologist, like Rigger character. And he is like this, like, you know, kind of logic bot character. So he's a slightly less, you know, there's not as much depth, and his recruitment is easier. But I always like talking to him. Like he's got good dialogue, and his personality comes through really strongly.
Yeah, he's like a transhumanist. He has a real strong relationship with his drone. He has a singular drone, and him and his drone are really good buddies. And yeah, like, and anytime you bring him along on a mission, his dialogue about any particular event or choice is always really good. Like, it's always just super black and white and perfect, like, technologist speak. It's really good. I enjoy that character a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then just kind of the ending. So we should talk about the big, because it ends, it's an origin story. Like, you become a Shadowrunner.
Yeah.
But when you kind of go into Kowloon to take on this demon, as the demon is driving everyone insane, there's not much to the actual ending. Like, you find out that the details we told you about, you know, what the machine, the origin of the machine, what's been happening. Your uncle attempts to sacrifice himself, which of course he does. If you've have enough, you know, spend enough time talking to your brother, you can avoid that ending. But kind of the big choice at the end is that she offers you a bad ending, Dragon Quest 1 style, where she says, listen, like, let this end, and I will give you 14 years of prosperity, which is such like a in keeping with the tone reward. I like that part of it a lot. Like, it's just like, oh, this sounds like something that, like, there'd be a legend where if you make a deal with a demon king, you can get 14 years of prosperity. Like, it's just a specific number.
I'm positive that's some form of, like, Chinese folklore.
Yeah.
There's no way that just, like, came out of nowhere. It's perfectly suited to the campaign.
The shitty thing about it compared to the last game is just that the demon queen doesn't really have, like, she doesn't have sympathetic motivations.
Right. There's no, you definitely don't have any reason to flip on her unless you're an evil bastard. Like, the only reason any of the other stuff exists is so you can play a total bastard character and be okay with putting her allowing her to take over the walled city. But yeah, so that I don't know what happens if you do that. I should look into it and see if there's another, you know, video or something that happens if you take the bad ending. But essentially, you know, if you say no to that, as that's her only deal, as far as I could tell. I don't know if there's other dialogue options that enable you to not have that third fight with her.
There is, yeah.
There is.
Yeah, and it involves, like, being close enough to your brother.
Oh.
As I was looking through the different alternate endings to the game, so you can avoid the last fight with her if you like.
He's a crybaby. I didn't talk to him all that much.
No, me either. Like, I didn't. When I did, I bullied him because I played a badass. Like, you get to choose why you left, and I chose the cool options.
Oh yeah, me too.
But yeah, I mean, I don't have that much more to say about it. I like it. It was really fun to play through. There's a lot of really awesome moments, and it does put the kind of scenario design and quest, like, kind of the things you're being asked to do. That's the thing these games do really well, is, like, it's never just a simple, like, go here and kill this thing. Like, there's always more to it, and that's really appealing and evokes, like, a tabletop style. Yeah,
this definitely captures more of a, as far as a like linear storyline game goes, these Shadowrun games have done very well at being good tabletop type deals, because that's exactly how you play a Shadowrun game at tabletop too. Is like, you're offered up a bunch of options of stuff you want to take as a team, and then you take them on and you get rewarded for them, and cycle continues. And you can play a Shadowrun campaign for forever with, like, little bits kind of developing your characters over time. And I think as far as you can encompass that in a game that has to end at some point, they've done really well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, we've said it a couple times now. I'll say it again. If you want to check these games out, start with Dragonfall. It's cream of the crop, tippy top, super good game. And I haven't checked out what's new in the director's cut. It hasn't nearly been long enough for me to want to replay it again. But if they wrapped any of the engine enhancements and kind of
that's the idea, yeah.
Yeah, the gameplay stuff that's in this game is in that one, then Dragonfall is going to be even better than it was. So that one's great. This still has a lot more meat to it than Dead Man Switch did. But Dead Man Switch is a quick kind of touch preview of what you're going to get out of these games, I guess. It's much shorter.
It's still not bad.
Yeah, it's good, but it's much shorter and much more linear, much less options for doing side stuff. And then this one I would definitely play second as far as quality of the three goes.
Agreed. And they're not connected, so play them whatever. I mean, technically there are a couple of ties in Dragonfall to Dead Man Switch, but it's not strong, so you can play them out of order.
It's fanboy stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's about it.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. So thanks for listening, guys.
Yeah, see you when we see you.
See you when we see you. Probably at the very least when Rebirth comes out. Hope you guys enjoy this episode. It's enough to carry you till then.
Yep.
Bye.
Right, thanks, guys.